I think, at some point when you're making a certain amount of money and you're not worried about paying your bills,
Right?
then you have
Yes.
some time to look deeper and explore whether you're really happy, because happiness was a luxury I didn't have before. It was all about survival. And once I
Right.
shifted from survival mode to the next step was actually to look and see, am I happy?
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. And I'm excited because today I have with me Ellie Perlman from Blue Lake Capital. And I really am excited about Ellie because first I went to Ellie's meeting to check her out because I had heard about her. And she was recommended to me. And then she came to my meeting kind of through my co-host. And all of a sudden I'm listening to this story as she's sitting there in my meeting. And I'm really appreciating the depth of her story. I'm appreciating where she comes from. And I'm appreciating the human being she's cultivated herself to be. And as you know, your mindset is a big part of what I feel like is your success in investing in real estate. So Ellie Perlman of Blue Lake Capital, welcome to the show.
Hey, Christina, it's really great to be here today.
So I asked if you would actually tell us your bio rather than me tell it, because your story is part of the profoundness of what makes you an investor. So tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I can maybe start from the end and then jump back to the beginning. So
Sure.
so listeners can kind of understand what I do and who I am. So I'm the owner and the founder. Well, owner and founder are kind of the same, but I'm the owner and CEO of the Lake Capital. And I live in Santa Monica, California. I own multifamily properties across the US, mainly Texas, Florida, and Georgia. But unfortunately, I don't buy anything in California for obvious reasons. And we own over 2,000 units now, and it's been a very joyful ride. Not all rosy. It's been it took me a while to get to where I am today. And kind of the beginning is actually in Israel, because I'm Israeli and I moved here about 6 years ago, and I've started life in kind of a remote little town. And pretty early on I realized that I was poor, and I think it was around the age of 9 or 10 when I realized where I am, in the hierarchy in society. So I lived in a house with two little sisters and one little brother, and my mom was pretty sick, so I had to kind of assume the role of the caretaker of the mother in the house, help my brother and sisters. And we just we didn't have much growing up. And at some point I realized, one of the kids made a really one of the kids in school made a really cruel remark, and I kind of understood that that I was poor. And I realized that getting food, around holiday time, and clothes donations were not the norm, and it took me a while to understand it. I was also working at the age of around the age of 10, just cleaning homes and synagogues to help my parents make a little bit more money. And around that time, I think around the age of 11 or 12, where you're becoming more aware of yourself, I understood where I was. And I understood where I was in society. I understood I was poor, and it didn't feel really tough, because when you're in a difficult situation, I think people looking from the outside, they think, oh my God, that's really hard. But if you don't know anything else, that's kind of
Right.
your reality,
That's what
right?
you know it.
Yeah, that's all I knew. But I started looking around me and become more aware. And I saw that some people had money, some people were middle class. I didn't even understand the phrase middle class back then. But what I did know is that I wanted to get out of that situation, that I had to somehow do something different. So I'm not going to need other people to give me food. I am not going to need other people to give me to donate clothes. And I didn't want to have, social welfare in my life as an adult growing up, because they have always been there. And I wasn't sure how to do it. Obviously, I was a kid. I wasn't sure how to do it. And, it was the first time where I kind of understood that some people with money own real estate, but it didn't go beyond that, because it seems like such a far, idea. In reality, I wasn't even thinking about it, to be honest. I just knew I wanted to get out of the situation that I was. And when I was about 15 years old, I was sent to boarding school because my parents couldn't afford to have kids to raise their kids in the house. And one by one, we were sent to boarding schools. And for the first time, I was independent and understood that I had to take care of myself, because I can't really trust anyone to do that for me. I didn't have that security net. I didn't have anything to kind of fall back to. And that developed a strong sense of responsibility. And I think I grew up super quickly. I don't remember really being a kid, maybe for a very short period of time. But I also, you talked earlier about mindset. I didn't let anyone, myself or anyone else, feel sorry for me. I knew, okay, that's the reality. It's not going to help if I'm going to cry or feel sorry for myself. What do I need? What can I do to fix it? And, but that's my personality. I'm a fixer. I like to see a problem. I like to start making a plan and executing a plan and fix it. And one of the things that I understood is, I don't have money, so I can't really start a business, or so I thought, that you need a lot of money to become an investor. I thought, you know what? I'm going to become a lawyer. I was a straight A student, and, as a straight A student, you're thinking about college, and I said, that would be my ticket out of this life. And I worked really hard. It took me a few years to get accepted to law school. And fast forward 4 years later, I graduated with 2 degrees in law, bachelor and master's, in kind of a special program. And I started living the dream. I started, for the first time in my life, I was making a little bit of money. And I kind of skipped the whole period from graduating from high school, where about a year later, I got married, because I thought, hey, I'm 19 years old. I'm already independent. It looked like a good idea at the time.
Right?
Yes. When you're young and you think, if you love someone, that's all that matters. I wasn't, smart enough to understand that you need you have to look into compatibilities and other factors that I wasn't aware of at the time.
Sure.
But somehow I made it work, and I got into law school. And after law school, I was a lawyer, and I started working. I got accepted in Israel to one of the leading law firms, and started working on great, amazing real estate deals. But at the same time, I started to feel that I'm missing something.
I was about to say, why ever stop being a lawyer if that was your pathway to freedom originally? Why go from being a lawyer to anything else? Because, a lawyer's pretty steady, right? So
yes.
Tell us about that transition.
So I think 2 things led to my decision to leave the legal career behind me. One is that there's a huge gap between how you perceive lawyers and what law really is, at least for me.
Okay.
I don't even know one of my classmates that says, I'm happy being a lawyer. This is great. There's a lot, long hours, you're doing a lot of mundane, work. And but the main reason is that I felt that I have potential, and I'm not living up to my potential. I'm not fulfilling my potential, because I saw my clients, they were real estate investors, they were managers of big real estate companies, and they came back from trips where they found, land to develop, or they were, looking into completely renovate an entire building that they want to purchase. And that's when it clicked for me, when I said, hey, I want to be my customers. I'm on the wrong side of the table. I'm on the other side. I learned a lot about real estate, and it was also during 2008. I also learned a lot from other investors' mistakes and
Okay.
what to do and what not to do. But it wasn't, I thought I can do a lot more by taking the next step. But it took me years from that point because, Christina, it is scary to leave a very solid job and start buying real estate. Um, and
Especially in
yeah,
2008, 2009. I
yes,
mean, you were leaping into real estate at the right time, but that's usually the scariest time to start investing is when it looks like there's the most, quote unquote, blood on the streets, when there's the most difficulty
yeah.
happening is one of the best times to buy. But how do you find the bravery to go from a stable law firm or semi-stable, even if the work wasn't exactly what you hoped it was going to be, into investing at a time when it was actually really hard?
Yeah, I think, at some point when you're making a certain amount of money and you're not worried about paying your bills,
Right.
then you have
Yes.
some time to look deeper and explore whether you're really happy, because happiness was a luxury I didn't have before. It was all about survival. And once I
Right.
shifted from survival mode to the next step was actually to look and see, am I happy? So if I can't pay for lunch and I can't pay for, if I can't pay my bills, then there's no room in my mindset to think about whether I'm happy or not. I just want to make sure I have enough money to survive.
Right.
And that was that was part of my mindset back then. And at the same time, when I was starting to question things and whether I was really happy working as a lawyer, I discovered that I had a rare eye disease, and until now, nobody knows why it happens. It's such a rare disease that there's not enough research, there's not enough information about it. But it almost left me blind, and I was battling this disease
Okay.
while trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And after a long and painful healing process, where it actually happened when I felt I was on the top of the world, and then I started to question things and I got the disease.
Wow.
I kind of realized that I might not be seeing reality as it is, and it was kind of ironic that it was my eyesight. But I remember still
Good for
driving, going
you.
to the
No,
well,
good for you. That's a huge self-ownership. I mean,
yeah,
that is beyond, I think, what some people would do every day. I think they go, oh, it's a medical problem. What is it about me? And it's like, no, it is about me. It is about how hard I work or how much stress I'm in or how much I've
yeah.
focused on survival instead of focused on happiness. And, that it is about me personally. And there is something I can do in my own mindset to make myself medically healthier.
Absolutely. I think that people tend to accept the fact that stress causes heart attacks because it's kind of a fact.
Right.
But, stress can cause other diseases, and other feelings besides stress can cause other diseases. So I believe that the mind and the body are connected. And if one of them is not working properly or there's an issue,
Right.
it reflects in your other parts of your body or your mind. And that's where, I spent a lot of time at home because I couldn't work. And then when I could, I was driving to work with an eye patch. And even though I was supposed to stay home, but it gave me a lot of time to really think what I wanted to do. And I realized that I
Yeah.
was unhappy. And I
Right.
said, I want to move to the more kind of the business side of real estate. And so I quit and I transitioned to property management. And I can tell you it was a fun job to deal with tenants and to run around from one property to another, but I learned so much. And it's easier to go through the hard times when you know it's going to end at some point and there's a reason for all of this. So I said, I'm going to do it for several years. It turned out to be 4 years. And with this experience, I can basically move forward and take the next step, which I wasn't sure what it was at that time, but I knew it would help me take the next step in real estate.
Sure.
And after 4 years, I moved to the US. At that point, I was already divorced, and I was already in Israel we call it Chapter B. So I met a great guy back in Israel, and we both decided to move to the US. He's an American, so for him it was, I actually had to convince him to move back. And I went to MIT and I got my MBA degree. It took me a few years to get there. It was not easy. But I wanted to understand, to learn more about the business, as a whole, how to do marketing, how to read financial reports, how to start a company, how to scale a company. And that's kind of, that was my beginning in the US.
That's pretty amazing that you went from lawyer survival mode to, I'm going to get myself out of this. I'm going to get myself a law degree because that will give me stability, to I've now stressed myself out and I'm literally pushed myself to the edge where I now have to step back and self-contemplate on what's better for me and better for my life, taking ownership of that. Moving into property management, which isn't fun, I think, in any country, whether it's in Israel or the US. It's very complicated, very hands-on. You're dealing with a lot of different personality types. But having been a lawyer, you probably found it maybe easier than somebody who wasn't a lawyer, because you knew more of the law that was on your side and where the boundaries were going to be. And then you moved to the US and you jumped into investing. But before you did that, you took on the humbleness of getting yourself educated even more.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in education, and I think it can really do wonders to your state of mind. It gives you the confidence that you're doing the right thing. And it's the way that I see it is that I covered so many aspects of real estate, the legal aspect, property management, and finally investing. And even today I'm diversified. So I invest passively with other syndicators, and I run my own syndication, syndicated deals, and I invest with investors and manage the investment for them. And it's always, education is a lifelong, ongoing process. It never stops. You always learn. Even now, I feel I need to expand my horizons. So I'm learning new languages, and I enjoy learning. I guess I'm a nerd, I guess, but I just enjoy becoming. Yeah, exactly. I really enjoy becoming smarter and smarter, and there's always people I can learn from. I learn from my employees. I learn from my husband. I learn from my investors. You always learn.
So tell us a little bit about your portfolio now. You have your own portfolio you share with your husband, but you also have the portfolio that you have crafted as a syndicator where you have investors that invest with you.
Yeah, that's correct. So my husband and I, we invest passively. We also invest in all of my deals, obviously, but aside of being a passive investor, which again is another way to diversify, but also learn what other sponsors are doing, I'm also sponsoring my own deals. So basically, we buy multifamily properties in Texas, Florida, and Georgia, and we put money into the deal, and we have investors that do the same. And my company manages those properties for investors, and so we split the shares every month. Every month I write a check or wire more like to all my investors, and me included, because I kind of wear two hats. I'm a passive investor on my deals, but I'm also the sponsor.
Sure. So you wire yourself as one of your investors. You're wiring yourself money, but you're also making sure that the investment itself is working.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, it's amazing the projection that you've taken and how far you've come. I mean, starting here in the U.S. in 2008 and 2009, getting your degree, becoming an investor. Here it is 2020. You've invested, 12 years in becoming a professional investor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm probably going to invest 10 more years. It never stops.
Exactly.
But yeah,
a couple decades actually.
Yeah, but I didn't jump into it.
No, you clearly set it as a trajectory, as a choice, and then you educated yourself both in experience and in pure education to be the best investor you knew how to be. And that's my take on your story.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really see it that way, but yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
I mean, when you said I became a property manager for 4 years, it's like, absolutely, that's amazing levels of experience and being able to, I mean, yeah, property management isn't necessarily all the financial overview, unless it is, right? Some property managers do manage the whole financial overview for the owners of their buildings, but it also, it's very on the ground, in the tenants. How do I improve it? Very engaged. You know, I mean, it's probably one of the, like a wholesaler, it's probably one of the fastest proving grounds in figuring out how a multi-unit works, is being a property manager.
Yeah, definitely. I think just learning how to communicate with tenants, tactics, to improve collections, it definitely helps. That's for sure.
Well, and then the legal side, and then of course going back and getting educated again. So it seems like if I were to ask you the question, what is it that made you so hungry to be financially free? I think we know the answer, but can you bottom line it for us?
Absolutely, is to take care of myself and my family. That's basically understanding that I have to do well because I can't fall back to the place where I was when I was a kid, and I have to take care of my parents who are growing older and needed care. I think that sums it up.
So what's the benefits now that you've gotten there? Now that you have your own portfolio, maybe you're not at your final goal yet or not. You know, some people are, some people aren't. Really, it depends as much on the goal as it matters where you are in your own life of investing. But what are the advantages that you found being there now? Like where you are now, what does that give you?
So obviously, I think the first one is that I can help the people that I love and are close to me. And it's very, very rewarding, but that's part of it. I'm not going to pretend that this is all, obviously, but it's a big part of, feeling, I think, happy and feeling satisfied with the choice that I've made, because if I stayed that lawyer in Israel, I would never be able to help the people that I want to help. And that's a big part of it. And that helps me, that kind of keeps me going when some days are hard, some days are long, some days are boring. It's not only, sunshine and rainbows.
Definitely
And
not.
yeah. And when you have the image of the people that you can help, that gives you, a push, and that helps you go through those rough, times. And that's definitely part of it. And I think another benefit is I really have control over my time.
Mm-hmm.
I do work harder than I've ever worked. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting by the beach, or drinking mimosas. But if I need to take a week or 10 days and disconnect and recharge, I can do it. And when I do it, my properties are still paying me because the tenants are paying me. When I'm sleeping, my tenants are paying me. And, once I grow the company and I hire more people, I can choose what to focus on even more. So it comes down, it basically, the bottom line is just freedom, but not just freedom to party, which I haven't done in I think a decade. It's not about partying or traveling or the freedom to sit by the beach, but it's the freedom to use the day the way you want. Mm-hmm. So if you can shape your day based on what you want to focus on, I can take pauses if I need to and if I want to, and that freedom is priceless.
It is to me. It is to me as well. That freedom is priceless. And I happily give up the security of a regular quote unquote job, even a really well-paying job, whether it's being a lawyer or being a doctor. I would give that up happily for the freedom of being able to be an entrepreneur, somebody that's directing my own course, giving me my sense of purpose, that I can direct what I'm passionate about and I can express that passion. And in this time of COVID, we have control over our time as well as our resources. It seems to me that this COVID is a great example of why being an entrepreneur can be valuable. Tell me your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can feel that I'm working harder during COVID than I was before because, the focus is right now to work hard and come up with useful tactics to maximize rent collections, which is the focus that we have right now, and make sure that we're able to bring tenants to the vacant units, because every building has a few vacant units.
Sure.
And it's kind of challenging right now when nobody wants to move, nobody wants to go anywhere.
Right.
So right now, I do work harder, but when I feel that there's a system overload and I need to pause,
Okay.
I pause and I read a book, or I watch something, watch TV or do something so I can decompress and then go back to that. Because sometimes, yesterday I didn't pay attention, but I was working till midnight. So of course it's not a straight line working
Right.
from, 9 a.m. until midnight. You have breaks in the middle. But COVID has really changed the way that we work, because there's a lot more imminent, I would say, threats to our investments that we need to take care of right now. So that's kind of how I feel about it. But on the other hand, it's very satisfying to see the results. So for instance, for April, we have collected over 99% of rents.
Nice.
Which that's a result of working super hard.
Nice. Good job. That is working super hard.
Thank you. And we'll see what happens in May, but it's kind of, COVID kind of changed a lot of things, and it changed the way that, the strategy. So we're looking at properties to purchase a bit differently. We're kind of might shift or adjust our strategy. So COVID changed a lot of things, but our income has not, hasn't been impacted that much at this point.
Okay. That is pretty amazing, because to me, I compare it to being like a waiter. If I was a waiter, or somebody was reliant on a restaurant industry, like I wouldn't have any income at all. I wouldn't have, if I didn't have my passive investments, I'd have no income. And I'm lucky, like you, I'm lucky in that real estate's considered an essential, vital field, so I can finish my projects and not have my business closed. Like I went to a place that I would take my dog to, and the guy met me at the front door and said, "I'm sorry, they've closed us down. We can't keep doing business." And it's like, wow, what's he going to do as an entrepreneur running his own business, right? Having employees under him, and now he has to close his business down because the government sent him a letter saying, "Sorry, you're not an essential business.
Yeah.
We're closing you down." Right? So, there's different things I feel grateful for in this time, but your hard work is clearly making a difference in protecting your investors, which is one of your primary jobs, right? As a syndicator, right? As a syndicator, is protecting the investments, not just your financial investment, but their financial investment as well. So congratulations on collecting.
Thank you.
99% of the rents. That must have taken some work and creativity on your part.
Yeah, a lot of work. And, investors are the number one priority for us. And that's why right now we feel that, I feel that I have this, that I have this responsibility and commitment, and I have to work harder than ever right now, because we are in this economic crisis. And when things are going to be back to normal, and hopefully, I don't know, in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, then we're going to have a few more deals, and I can take time to celebrate and decompose and, and maybe take a vacation. But right now, that's part of, you have that freedom, but on the other hand, that comes with a cost, and you have, a lot of you have a huge responsibility.
Huge responsibility. You do.
Yeah. Your investors.
To your investors.
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
That's what you got to do. And I'm my next question is, what's the hardest thing you've ever faced in investing? How do you solve it, and how do you learn from it? Because, the mindset is cultivated through experience, through facing something hard, solving that thing that's hard, and then making the decision about who you're going to be in relationship to that cultivates your character, your mindset, and your sort of inner metal, your inner strength, and being able to take on the next one. So what's the hardest thing you've ever done in real estate?
I think one of the hardest thing was actually to close on a deal last year that had a significant drop in occupancy. So the deal was, when we signed the contract with the seller, it was around 95, 98% occupied, and it dropped to 82% right before closing. So if you haven't been part of the entire cycle, it's basically from the moment you sign a contract until you close, it's 60 to 90 days,
Right.
where
Or
you
longer.
basically come, or longer. Yeah. But basically, usually it's 60 to 90 days when you go through due diligence and you place financing. So things change. But we've discovered that the property that was managed by the owner without any property management company, and that's why it was a great opportunity
Right.
for us, that they have decided to hire a third party company to manage the property, and they came in and looked at the tenant base and started evicting people.
Right.
And
Right.
that's, and we figured out that they didn't think to pick up the phone or email us and say like they have to disclose the information. So we always ask for more information for the newest financials before closing. And we saw this huge gap in occupancy, which translates into a huge gap in decline in income.
Right.
And
Which is
it was challenging.
value. Now that changes the value of the building you're buying.
Yes.
Can be significantly.
Yeah, exactly. And it also means that the lender, we were not supposed even to get the loan because we were looking into an agency loan, Fannie Mae, and you have to be stabilized, which is 90% occupied for 90 days. Otherwise, you're not qualified. And we had to go through a lot of, effort to convince them to keep the loan.
Right.
And we also had to renegotiate and get an adjustment on the price to account for the decline in income. So we basically inherited a property with almost, with, I wouldn't say 20%. Yeah, it was about 20% vacancy. And that was challenging. So that was, I think, the hardest thing that I've done, pushing up occupancy within, I think, 45 days from.
How did you solve it? What did you do? What were the tricks and tips you used? How did you actually, get your hands dirty and dig in and solve it?
So the main thing was to hire the best property management company, which was already in place before we signed the contract. And once they got in, they were able to push occupancy. So it's every investment is different. And with that investment, the main thing that drove people away and made tenants leave is how the former owner treated the property and treated the tenants. Mm-hmm. So when you get in, you put a new management in place, communicate with tenants that there's new management now and new ownership, and we take care of tenants. So the first thing we did was fix all the things that needed to be fixed. So we had a huge line of tenants waiting to have their AC replaced, and it was a pretty hot summer. And they just, of course they would leave by the end of the lease because their AC was down for the entire hot summer. Right. And so taking care of tenants and showing them that we are here, we care, we're different, we're not the old, owner. And that's these are the things we did. There's no magic tricks here. I mean, there's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just understanding that there's some needs that are needed to be taken care of, fixing the units, taking care of tenants, putting people that are professional, that are courteous, that can, as leasing officers, which are interacting with the tenants on a daily basis. That was alone enough to kind of help push the income upwards and the property is cash flowing. But that was kind of one of the main, that was, I think, the most challenging investment that I've had so far. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming, in the future. It's never real estate. It's never how you picture the investment to be. There's always something in real estate.
There's always something. Yeah. Somebody asked Bruce Norris, out of all the escrows you've had, how many of them have problems? He said, well, out of how many? He said, how about out of 20 escrows you have, how many of them have problems? He said, 19. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. That's the nature of real estate, right? It's as much about problem solving as it is about the asset itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you felt like was the prime? I mean, you've already been through a lot of hard things. So maybe this one experience didn't craft who you were or shape who you were, but what was the experience you took from this one?
The experience that I took,
or the
yeah,
lesson?
yeah, the lesson that I took, I think, looking back, going into a deal knowing that things will go wrong is setting you up for success because you're expecting that something will happen. And it's all about what you do with it. So you can handle it poorly, get scared and leave the deal. You can be upset and manage it in an unprofessional way, or you can say, okay, again, it goes back to me being a problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem, what can I do to fix it? So everyone would approach hardship differently. Look into the parts in your personality that are your biggest strengths, and try to understand how they can help you solve this problem. And I think that's what I took from it, is this, I like challenges, but it's also about how you approach the situation, because by closing the deal and behaving in a certain way, that really helped building even more solid relationships with the broker that was involved in the deal. Because now the next thing, he basically offered us some off-market deals in the area. It's communicating with the lender, so the lender knows that you're a closer, and now that you've proven that you actually increase the occupancy, then it will be easier for you to get newer loans. So there's always something good that can come out of it. And if real estate wasn't challenging, then the world would have, I think there would be a lot more investors out there.
Right.
But that's part of the game. There is hardship. And if you don't want to deal with that, then you can still be an investor, but be on the passive side. So you only write the check. You don't deal with the stress. You don't deal with negotiation and hiring a property management company and working extra hard when there's COVID here, COVID-19. So it's a choice. It's definitely a choice.
All right, well, let's end with that. So if people want to get a hold of you, Ellie, to invest in your syndications, to trust you as an investor, as a passive investment, because that's what you offer, or they're wanting to they've got a good multi-unit and they want to see if it fits inside of your portfolio and your design, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I think the best way would be to go to my website. If you Google Ellie Perlman, or you go to ellieperlman.com, you can leave me a message there. You can also email me to ellie@bluelake-capital.com.
Okay.
And actually, if you go to my website, on the homepage, you can download for free a guide that can basically walk you through the most critical deal components that every passive investor should look into. Kind of from my experiences, both as a sponsor and a passive investor, what you want to look into when you're looking at a deal. But I think just my website is the best way to get a hold of me. And if by any chance you're thinking, hey, what you're doing is really interesting, I actually want to be a syndicator myself,
Okay.
then you can also look for, I have a mentoring program. You can either find information on my website or go to REady2ScaleInvesting.com.
REady2ScaleInvesting.com. And Ellie is spelled ELLIE, and Perlman is PERLMAN, just as it sounds. And
Yes.
so they can get a hold of you at bluelakecapital.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your patience as we get this interview all set up. And thank you so much. I am Christina Suter. This is the Real Estate Breakthrough, and I just finished interviewing Ellie Perlman with Blue Lake Capital. Tune in next week.